And now to the British Columbia Creative Achievement Award of Distinction. In British Columbia, we have many exceptional applied artists and designers who over the years have distinguished themselves as leaders in their field, accomplished artisans and designers who have national and international reputations, successful creative entrepreneurs who have combined their talent and skills with passion and determination. They have made themselves, their colleagues, their staffs, all British Columbians proud. Tonight we add fashion designer Catherine Regehr to that list. It is a tradition to present our distinction recipients a certificate that is quintessentially British Columbia. Each component from the frame to the typography are produced by British Columbian artists. Catherine Regehr.
I have to read it. It's supposed to be 5 minutes. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the British Columbia Achievement Foundation for honoring me with the 2012 BC Creative Achievement Award of Distinction. Thank you, Premier Christy Clark, and Chair of the Foundation, Keith Mitchell, for your kind words in announcing this award. And thank you, Honorable Ida Chong, for being here to present the award tonight. And thanks, Fanny. And now some thanks of a more personal nature. First, I want to thank Sam Carter, who has always encouraged me from my early days at Emily Carr as a 20-year-old, and that's a while ago, through my studies in Paris to my present-day career. Thanks, Sam. Next, I must especially acknowledge my good and dear friend, Martha Sturdy, for always being a great source of strength, and by God, we need it sometimes in our creative industries, and support to me, both in my career and my personal life. Thank you, Martha. I also want to thank George Caffin and Greg Main. They're my right hands at work. I definitely couldn't do it without them. And the rest of my staff, Vanessa, May, Fong, Donna, without whom my work would not be possible. And lastly, but most importantly, I want to tell my beloved children, Eva, Alexandra, and Isabella, who have endured years of a mother who has worked long hours and been away from home traveling far too often, that without you, none of this would be worth it. Anyways, I have been very fortunate to have based my business in British Columbia, a province that I love and has offered me an environment where I could work far away from the hubbub and distraction of Canada's large eastern cities. I grew up in the Yukon. This is as much as I can take. Along with the privilege of working among Vancouver's dynamic design community, BC has also offered me the solitude and beauty of its northernmost reaches, where each summer I enjoy some of the most beautiful wilderness of the world. I mean, it's amazing where I go. Well, I've had many successes and many challenges in my career, and there are 3 things that I feel have made a fundamental difference to me. Number 1, tenacity, the strength never to give up. Let me tell you a little story about a pivotal time early on in my career. It took place in New York. It was the last day of a totally unsuccessful business trip. I remember sitting on the hotel bed, completely dejected, phone in hand, wondering whether I should bother making that last call from a very long list of stores, none of whom were interested in me or my little sales pitch. I did decide, though, I might as well complete the list and called the buyer at Bonwit to tell her. Maybe I told her I was already selling at Barney's. Sometimes you have to do that. I may have stooped to that. Regardless, she did come over somehow. It was just a few blocks away. She came later that afternoon, and she gave me, at the end of, I think, a week of selling nothing, a $38,000 fall order, a New York Times ad, and the whole bank of windows on 57th Street. It still makes me smile to think of it, but it really was the last buyer, the last store on the list. That call was the beginning and helped open the door to countless other opportunities. Since then, I've sold to pretty well all the major department stores in the US and Canada: Holt Renfrew, The Room at the Bay, Saks, Bergdorf Goodman, Nordstrom's, Bloomingdale's, Henry Bendel, Neiman Marcus, and of course Barney's, in Japan too. So I would say the second thing is I've always tried to maintain my creative integrity. After years of designing high-end fashion, I increasingly felt the need for a new challenge. Fashion, after several years, no longer fully reflected who I was. So I made a decision to develop my home collection. I've always loved the First Nations bead and quill work that I grew up with in the Yukon. Used to wear the moccasins and the whole thing. I wanted to incorporate that and my love of texture into a collection of pieces for the home. I had absolutely no idea how I was going to do it, or if it would even be viable, but I had this definite idea. However, again, with Martha's ongoing encouragement and support, and a certain amount of perseverance, I introduced my first home collection at Maison Objet in Paris. And I'm now selling my collection to some great accounts, including here in our hometown, Provide. Thanks, guys, for buying it. As well as Christian Dior stores in Casablanca and Qatar, the Calvin Klein flagship store on Madison Avenue, and several very interesting stores and designers in Europe and the Middle East. And I'm saying that mainly just to say that, you can start from nothing, and if you just persevere, you can do this. You can really do this. You can't give up. I'm happier creatively, and my fashion collection has become much more interesting with the influence of these new ideas. And finally, the last has been my ability, and definitely not always easy, to maintain a balance between my work, my family, and my need to spend a part of each year in the outdoors. Without this balance, my work and my personal life would never have the same quality or value for me. Again, my deepest appreciation for honoring me with this wonderful award. Thanks.